Hey everyone, today I want to talk about changing the fluid in Corollas with the CVT transmissions. Now starting in 2014, Toyota switched over to a CVT in the Corollas. This transmission does not have a traditional dipstick in it like some of the older cars do, and it's more complicated to change the fluid in this, and you do need some specialized tools for doing this. Now, I try to do all my own maintenance myself. You can save a considerable amount of money doing your own maintenance, but if I really can't feel like I can do something right, typically I will have the professionals do it, because I'd much rather have something done correctly than do it myself and then do it wrong. So I just got back from the dealer, and this was the only thing that I've had Toyota actually do to this car other than some complimentary services when the car was new. Because there's a bunch of videos on the internet that talk about changing the fluid in these cars, but you really can't change a lot by doing it yourself. And I was under the impression that the dealer was able to change all the fluid out when I spoke to them about it. Now, when I went in, and after they'd taken the car, and the service advisor called me back and told me that at first he didn't realize this was a CVT car when I was speaking to him out front. And he said on some of the older cars, they can actually cycle the fluid through the transmission and change it out that way. But he said with the CVT cars, it's a drain and fill procedure. So they're technically not changing all the fluid. Now, he told me they can change approximately half of the fluid in it. The system takes approximately 8 quarts, give or take. And they were able to change about half of that from what he told me. Now, I'll show you my receipt. They charged me $252 to do this. They charged me $140 in labor, and they charged me about $97 for a 4-liter jug of the CVT fluid, which is the FE fluid. This is different from some of the older Toyota fluid. The older stuff in the gear transmissions was called WS, which stands for World Standard, but the CVT specific fluid from Toyota is the FE fluid, and I'll also show how you can identify on the transmission what type of fluid it takes. Now, I was a little disappointed that they can't change everything. Now, Toyota does not have a guide as far as in the owner's manual when to change this under normal driving conditions. Under severe duty, like if you're driving with a car top carrier, they say change it every 60,000, but the problem is even with the dealer, with all their specialized equipment and all the machines they have, they themselves cannot change all the fluid. They can't exchange it like they do in some older cars. So it's kind of going to be up to you whether or not you want to have them do it or do it yourself. Now, he's telling me that they were able to change the entire 4-liter jug, and actually he said a little more they were able to get in there, so they were able to change about 50% of the fluid. That's what they're telling me. Obviously, I was not able to physically verify this in person and watch them do it, because they don't let you stand back there and watch the mechanics work as much as I would have liked to. Now, I have seen a video on the internet by a guy called Scotty Kilmer. If anybody follows any auto repair videos on YouTube, Scotty Kilmer is one of the big auto repair guys on YouTube. He did a video, which I will post in the description below, about changing the transmission fluid on this car. When he did it, he was only able to get out less than 2 quarts of fluid. So if you want to tackle this yourself and do it, you're going to have to do this on a fairly constant basis as far as keeping the fluid clean, and you're going to be constantly having to cycle it out, because you're going to be changing only about 20% if you do it yourself at home, and the dealer's claiming they can do 50%. I'm not sure how they do it any differently. I'm not sure if he's being fully honest with me or not. Again, I can't verify 100%, but one of the issues with doing it at home is you can't check the actual level. What you're basically doing is you're going to take fluid out, and you're going to measure that amount and then put brand new fluid in its place. Now, I try to stick to OEM fluids. The Toyota FE transmission fluid is expensive. The cheapest I was able to find it online was $75 for a 4-liter jug. So I'll just go under the car and just kind of point out exactly what you're doing when you change it. But like I said, you can't actually physically check the level the way the dealer can when you do it. Now, on the right side of the car, on the driver's side, you have this plug here is the actual drain plug for the transmission, and inside that is a straw that actually sets the level. So you're going to basically take this out with a 6mm Allen key, and the 6mm Allen key will also fit the straw inside of it that sets the level. So you'll take both of those out, and when Scotty Kilmer did it, he got out approximately 2 quarts. It was actually a little bit less than 2 quarts when he did it. Now, to put fluid back in, you would take this panel off. You have 2 bolts and then a plastic sort of rivet. And under here, this right here, if you look closely, so I don't know if it comes up on video, it has an FE stamped into it. That FE is the transmission fluid type. The older cars will say WS, which stands for world standard. So you're going to take this off here, and you're going to very carefully measure the fluid that came out and put that exact amount of fluid back in the transmission through this. So you take that bolt off and put it back in through there. If you want to go ahead and do this yourself and you don't want to have the dealer do it, but if you take it in to have a Toyota dealer do it, expect to pay about $250, and supposedly they can change 50%. I don't know if they have other ways they can drain and fill, if they're able to pull more out. The guy really couldn't tell me much. The service advisor seemed like he didn't really know, but that's what they're telling me. It's up to you whether or not you want to believe the dealer and you want to talk to them about it. But if you want to go ahead and do this yourself, expect to get out less than 2 quarts, but you do need the Toyota CVT specific transmission fluid to do it, to put the correct fluid in. And again, doing it at home, you have to be very careful to measure out the exact same amount, because if you put in the wrong amount, you're never going to know. There's no way at home without the proper tools to know if the level you put in is correct or not. So I just want to give everybody sort of an idea of that you can do this at home. It's a little bit more complicated, and it may not be as accurate versus if you go to the dealer, expect to pay about $250 like I did, and supposedly they can change about half of it. So this is the best Toyota can do. He said Toyota is telling them to do drain and fills. They can't change all the fluid. That's per Toyota. So it seems like this fluid is going to have to get changed. If you want to keep it really, really clean, you're going to have to change it a little bit more often, because you can't do it all in one shot, like on some older vehicles. He said these do have torque converters on them, but you can't drain the torque converter like you can on some older vehicles. So this is kind of how they're doing it. So I hope that you enjoy the video, and this is kind of giving a little bit more light to these transmissions. A lot of people kind of really don't understand how these work or how you change the fluid, but that's basically how you do it. So you have really 2 avenues: either do it yourself or have the dealer do it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.